What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Bubble's BuzzerBeater, the official BuzzerBeater YouTube channel. And today we wanted to do something a little bit different, something that I've never done before. As a lot of you know, in the United States, there is a basketball tournament going on right now for collegiate programs called March Madness, and it's one of the craziest basketball months of the year. Lots of really interesting players and fun teams to watch. This Saturday it is the Final Four, so we're down to the Final Four teams, and then the championship is on Monday. But this is the month of the year where everyone starts tuning into college basketball, and if you're an NBA fan, you start watching some of these high-level prospects who are in college looking at going to the NBA draft here in just a couple of months. So I wanted to go through and just see, what would some of these notable NBA draft prospects look like if they were drafted into BuzzerBeater. So the interesting with this is that for BuzzerBeater, as you guys know, the draftees are only going to be 18 or 19 years old, but for real-life NBA prospects range from like 18 all the way up to 22 years old, so there's a much wider range. And because of this, I wanted to, kind of distinguish who's going to be an 18-year-old draftee in BuzzerBeater and who's going to be 19. So what I came up with, and I think gives us a good baseline, is NBA prospects who are between 18 and 20 are going to be who I consider the younger prospects and will be entering BuzzerBeater as an 18-year-old draftee. And then players who are 21 or 22 will enter as a 19-year-old draftee, who obviously have the capabilities of having higher skills. So the first player and who I project to be the first pick overall is Jabari Smith, who attended Auburn. And I think in BuzzerBeater, he's the clearest of clear 5'5" A+ prospects. So you can see his BuzzerBeater build that I'd have as a draftee right there. Hall of Famer potential, really no weaknesses. I think he's very solid, very well-rounded. You can see his stats down at the bottom of the screen that he had at Auburn for his one and only season. 42% from three, very good rebounder, decent shot blocker, decent passer, not really any weaknesses in his game. Just a very high-level offensive player who I think has the intangibles, skills to defend very well at the next level as well. So you can see 62 total skill points right there, just like the perfect prospect that you'd want. And he's one of the two players who I view to have Hall of Famer potential in this upcoming draft. The other player who is a Hall of Famer for potential is Chet Holmgren. And he is one of the more polarizing prospects entering the NBA because he's, like 7'1" and just not very built, doesn't really have the muscle yet, very skinny guy, but very good skills, good guard skills for someone who's so tall, and, length. He has a 7'6" wingspan, so you can see those inside skills are very good. In college, he shot 60% from the field, 39% from three. And then the big one is that 3.7 blocks per game. So, as you know, for BuzzerBeater, the 18-year-olds can only go up to respectable or level 7 for their initial skills. So that's where, if it was up to me, he'd probably be at a 8 or 9 skill level for shot blocking at least. But in the sake of BuzzerBeater, he just starts out with 7 in those skills and then 59 total skill points right there. So, moving on, Paolo Banchero, he has a MVP potential, and I think he is still a very good, very intriguing prospect, both for the NBA as well as if he was in BuzzerBeater. I don't think he has quite the upside of Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren, but I think MVP potential is definitely something you can make a very good player out of. You can see 59 total skill points right there, and then very similar to the other two, not a whole lot of holes. You can see the 7s and 6s across the board, no real glaring weaknesses. The only thing I'd say he can improve upon is his field goal percentage and 3-point percentage in college was not great. His jump shooting and outside shooting will have to improve when he goes to the NBA. So that's where you can see the jump shot as a level 5 and jump range as a 4 in depth. So that's really the only place he needs to improve upon. And then I actually listed him as a 5.5 prospect instead of A+. I'm not exactly sure what the salary cutoff is for an A versus an A+, but I think he is a clear step down from the other two, just in terms of salary. So you can see for the other two, $4,000 and $3,771. But for him, he's just above $3,000 right there. So I do have him listed as an A. BuzzerBeater might have listed him as an A+, though. Moving on, we have Jaden Ivey. And this is going to be the first player where you can see the age listed right there is 18. And he's actually a 20-year-old in real life, but for BuzzerBeater, he will be plugged in as an 18-year-old if he was drafted into BuzzerBeater. And then you can see he's a 5.5 A- prospect, and once again, that's just because of the estimated salary only at $2.5K. Guard skills, very, very good. He's an elite offensive guard. Not a great passer. I think that's something he can work on. And then his inside defense and shot blocking obviously isn't going to be there as much as some of the other players, as this is the first guard we have. But MVP potential, and you can see his stats down there at the bottom. 46% shooting from the field, 35.8% from 3, so it's something he can improve upon, but I think he was also taking a lot of contested shots, and he was the one who was kind of carrying the offense for Purdue. So definitely not a bad prospect at all. Moving on, we have Johnny Davis, who's going to be the first 5.4 prospect. So I have him listed as a 5.4 A prospect. And you can see his skills right there. Another very elite offensive player. He averaged 19.7 points per game at Wisconsin. And then similar to Jaden Ivey, his field goal percentage and three-point field goal percentage are both a little bit lower than his freshman year. His sophomore year, he was asked to carry the load a little bit more. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. He was essentially Wisconsin's entire offense. So that's where you see 7s across the board for that. And then he's also an elite rebounding player for his height. He's like a shooting guard, small forward, and to average 8.2 rebounds a game is really, really impressive. The passing, is very hit or miss, and I think that's part of the reason is he didn't really get a chance to develop that in college, as he was the one asked to do all the scoring. But you can see 56 total skill points right there, and then superstar potential. So I think he takes a slight dip down from the first 4 prospects we talked about, but superstar potential is definitely still a very, very good player, both for BuzzerBeater and real life. Next, we have AJ Griffin, another 5.4 prospect. I have him listed as an A- because he is below that $3,000 estimated salary threshold. And AJ Griffin, pretty straightforward prospect. For BuzzerBeater, he'd be the equivalent of just like, hey, you're creating an outside shooting guard. And, he's a shooting guard, small forward in real life. And you can see the 3-point field goal percentage right there, 45.8%. He was one of the best 3-point shooters in college. And that's why we have 7 and 7 for jump shot and jump range. His handling, I think, is decent, but his driving and athleticism, he hasn't quite gotten a hold of how to use his athleticism to get to the rim as well as he can. And then the defense is always a little bit hit or miss with him, but overall, decent prospect. I think you definitely wouldn't be upset with drafting this sort of player in BuzzerBeater. 53 total skill points, superstar potential, but it's not something you're like super hyped about if you have the first or second overall pick. Next, we have Keegan Murray. And Keegan Murray is going to be the first BuzzerBeater 19-year-old. He's 21 in real life. And in BuzzerBeater, he's going to be listed as a 5.4 A+ prospect. And Keegan Murray is one of the players who I think his skills just translate so well to the NBA. You can see the points per game right there of 23.5. One of the best scorers in college basketball this season. Also a very, very good rebounder for his size, similar to Johnny Davis. And then once again, The passing is a little bit of a question mark, but mainly because he was asked to carry the offensive load. You just didn't get to see a whole lot of him developing those skills throughout the season. As a 19-year-old in BuzzerBeater, as a draftee, this is where you can go all the way up to proficient or level 9 skills. So you can see for jump shot and driving, I do have him at proficient. And then jump range, handling, inside shot, all very solid. Outside defense had an 8. Shot blocking, something he's very good at as well, 1.9 blocks per game. At like 6'8" roughly, he's standing at. And then rebounding, same thing. So this is one of those players where I love BuzzerBeater because if you draft a 19-year-old now opposed to seasons ago, the 19-year-old can actually be a very, very good prospect for you. And you can see, even though he's 19 and he just has superstar potential, him starting at 73 total skill points is something that can be very valuable, and you can still develop him very, very well. He just doesn't get that extra year of a youth trainer. Moving on, we have Ochai Agbaji. And Ochai Agbaji is going to be a 5'4" prospect. He is 21 in real life as well, so slotting in at age 19 for BuzzerBeater. And Ochai Agbaji is a player who, played in college for a long time. He was a 4-year player, so he's a senior at KU right now. He is also in the Final Four, so he will play on Saturday. But you can see 18.9 points per game. He was hovering right at or above 40% from 3 for the season. It looks like he finally did dip below that mark at 39.8% now. But just a very good jump shooter, very athletic guy. So you can see that driving and jump shot at 9. And then very balanced outside of that. I think he's a good, not great defender. I think he's a decent passer. And then just the intangibles of the game, I think he's definitely not like an elite player anywhere outside of jump shooting, but he definitely has enough to get it done. So I have him listed as a 5'4" prospect. I don't quite see the upside as much as with Johnny Davis and Keegan Murray, so I do have him as perennial all-star potential. And then this is getting into the range of player where it's like, well, would I prefer this 5'4" perennial all-star, or would I prefer a younger player with perhaps more potential? So that's always something to think about in BuzzerBeater, but Ochai is one of my favorite players in college basketball, so I'm excited to watch him on Saturday, and this is kind of what I have him slotted at for perennial all-star potential, but very solid, balanced starting skills. Next we have Oscar Tshiebwe, and Oscar, I think he is going to win the Player of the Year for college basketball. For those of you that don't watch, the Kentucky Wildcats were actually bounced out in the first round against a 15 seed, the St. Peter's Peacocks. So not the best ending for Kentucky and Oscar, but he was remarkable in their last game, and he's been remarkable all season. He's what I'd consider like a true big. You can see his three-point percentage across his 3 years in college. He just doesn't shoot them. He really doesn't shoot outside of the paint. So that's where you can see the awful jump shot, pitiful jump range. That's just not what he does. He's also not a, high-level passer. This season was the first time he started to kind of look that way in any sort of regard at 1.1 assists per game, but that's just not what he's there to do. And then where you get to the good parts is you can see the points at 17.4, field goal percentage at 60.6%, and then the rebounds at 15.1%. That's where he excels, is defense, rebounding, and then inside scoring. I don't think he's amazing at it, but the fact that he gets so close to the rim and is an elite rebounder, he gets a lot of tip-ins and a lot of easy shots. So one of the players where you could draft him, and if you're in a lower league, he could instantly slide into like a backup power forward center role for you. Perennial all-star potential. He's actually one of the oldest prospects in the upcoming NBA draft, where he is, 22 years old already, almost going to be 23. So perennial all-star potential. He just doesn't quite have that upside, but he could slot in for a lower level team in BuzzerBeater with the 9 skills in inside defense, shot blocking, and rebounding right away. So a little bit of a more interesting prospect and more of a true center that you don't see as much nowadays. And that's what I have for Oscar. And then the last player that I have, once again, this is just 10 players that I picked that I was interested in, kind of working through their skills, looking at their stats, and figuring out what they look like in BuzzerBeater. If this is a video that you guys are interested in, I can always do more prospects before the NBA draft, because there's a good chunk of players, both in college as well as international players, who will be drafted in the NBA this season. So if you like what you're seeing, please comment down below and let me know. But the last player we have is Liddell, and he is going to be a 19-year-old in BuzzerBeater as well. In real life, he is 21. And once again, perennial all-star potential. He's one of those guys who stayed in college. He was potentially going to go to the draft last season, but elected to come back to Ohio State, where he averaged 19.4 points a game, 7.9 rebounds per game, and the big one is 2.6 blocks per game. So Liddell isn't a like huge player, and I'd say he's not even like a plus defender. I think he's a good, not great defender, but his shot blocking, both man-to-man as well as coming off the like backside to help, is very, very good. 2.6 blocks per game, and then where he shines really is his offense. So at 37.4% from three, it is something he could work on. He didn't shoot a lot of them, but it is something that he's developing. He was deadly more in like the mid-range post area, so that's where you can see the 9 inside shot, 8 driving, 7 jump shot. I do have him at 4 jump range, which might be a little bit low. I'm just not sure how his shooting will translate to the NBA, but still a very good player at 70 total skill points, and showing once again why 19-year-olds in BuzzerBeater could be very draftable, and you'd not be upset with this pick, I don't think. He's definitely someone who you could sell for a decent amount of cash, or you could hold on as like a cup player or backup if you're in a lower league. So that's the players that I have for this video. If you wanted to go through and list them out as to who you'd have in what order, I know the first few players I kind of talked about where I would have them personally in the draft, as well as for BuzzerBeater, but later on, if you wanted to kind of list down what your order would be, I think it would be fun to kind of compare who has what. And until next time, guys, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.